Now.
On 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app.
O'Connor and Company.
Well, it looks like Pete Hegseth helped his cause quite a bit yesterday. What a confirmation hearing in the Senate. We've got all the highlights and the lowlights coming up later this morning. Also at 6:05, Garrett Exner. He's with the group Veterans on Duty. He's also with Hudson Institute. He's here to talk about those confirmation hearings. But a lot of veterans lining up on behalf of the warfighter Secretary of Defense instead of the pencil pusher Secretaries of Defense we've had for the past several years. At 6:35, Cal Thomas will be our guest. 7:05 brings us Republican strategist Matt Whitlock. We'll talk to him about what went down in the Senate yesterday. And then at 8:35, Christian Toto. Turns out the Reagan movie is not eligible for an Oscar, Julie Gunlock, because it's not diverse enough. Because, whenever I look for an award to give to a movie, I always want to make sure that movie has all the right boxes checked first.
That's right. That's
always excellent. If Francis Ford Coppola had released The Godfather this year, the Academy would be like, yeah, okay, it's a pretty good movie, but too many white Italian dudes.
Too many Italians.
Where's the black lesbian storyline? We're going to get into all of that. Good morning, Julie Gunlock, riding alongside here for this fine O'Connor and Company extravaganza. Did you enjoy watching your fellow women yesterday on Capitol Hill?
Such an embarrassment to women. I actually had some meetings that I had to cancel yesterday because it was such a great hearing.
It was riveting.
I was like, I can't really make this very important meeting that's been on the schedule for 2 months because this is too good.
Someone needs to write a book just about the narrative of the Pete Hegseth nomination from the day it was made. And I'll admit, and I continue to be surprised that Pete Hegseth was nominated for Secretary of Defense. It was such an outside-the-box, if I may say, nomination. And many people, even people that I know in the Trump world, were like, what? Pete Hegseth?
Yeah, sure.
And I still feel that way in some respects because it is so unique. Yet at the same time, and I expressed that day one, but I also said, listen, doesn't matter. I didn't win the election. Donald Trump did. And Donald Trump I will continue to repeat the exact same line I have repeated since day one. Donald Trump deserves to have the cabinet he wants, period. And unless there's some extraordinary reason, Republican senators should vote in lockstep to support the man who just won the presidency under their party banner, right? Yeah. And you had Lindsey Graham expressing concern. You had Joni Ernst expressing concern. You had, Mitch McConnell, who knows what the hell he's doing these days. But everyone assumed Mitch McConnell would vote against him. And all these other people would. And they said, well, he'll never even make it to the confirmation hearings. And then he pushed back against the media. He pushed back against all of the anonymous sourced stories that now U.S. senators are citing in these committee hearings as if they are, the gospel according to Tapper, and which is exactly the playbook from Kavanaugh, right? Exactly. And these freaking Republicans never learn their lesson. And by the end of at first I was told that they would pull his nomination and he would never make it to a confirmation.
That's right.
Then they made it to the confirmation hearing yesterday, and I heard the smart set right up until the hearing started yesterday. The smart set was saying, well, sure, they allowed Trump's people to have the hearing, but this is the point where it's all going to fall apart, and they'll pull Hegseth by Inauguration Day because Republicans won't be there. And they were saying there's 7 or 8 Republicans who will not vote for him, and they're going to do this discreetly, and Hegseth will pull out over the weekend.
Yes, because
but the news will get lost.
Right, he can only lose 3 Republicans. That was the rule.
And by the end of the day yesterday, both Joni Ernst and Lindsey Graham put out statements saying, we will vote for Pete Hegseth. So as far as I'm concerned, he solidified his position as Secretary of Defense. It was a brilliant, brilliant hearing, and he absolutely played it perfectly. And meanwhile, as you just alluded, Julie, the Democrats, I don't know what they were thinking.
Oh,
the way they went after, and the 4 senators that they chose to go after him, all 4 women. You had Duckworth, you had Mazie Hirono. Good
Oh
Lord.
my goodness gracious!
You had Gillibrand, and who was the 4th Harry in there that was going after him? I can't remember now.
Well, you had Tim Kaine. That was the man that went out. Tim Kaine.
She
That
was
first of all,
in a
also,
mood yesterday.
What happened to Tim
wasn't she?
Kaine? Did he go through a washing machine before he ended up? Can I just like be a little shallow right now? What happened to him? He looked like the mad professor from Back to the Future, or there were
Somebody referred to him as a toad yesterday, and
yeah.
I cannot get it out of my head now. He does look rather amphibious.
Yes, he does. But it more importantly, like, I don't know what happened to the hair. Was he in a wind tunnel? Like, what happened? Did he jump out of an airplane? I don't know what happened to him right before, but he looked nuts. And he is an embarrassment to Virginia. Absolute embarrassment, his line of questioning, after this man stood next to Doug Emhoff and ran with Hillary Clinton, is a part of the whole Clinton family power center. He has the nerve to ask Pete Hegseth those intrusive questions based on anonymous sources. It was really disgusting. I know we've got audio from that. And we'll
I want to get to some of this audio. I want to start with my favorite Pete Hegseth moment that I thought really just. And again, and everybody who's like, and again, I still think it's an outside the box appointment. But the whole idea that he retired from the military as a major, and that was as high as he went officer-wise, which some people hold against him. Well, I think it was Duckworth. He never led anything larger than a platoon, and he this, and he that, and he that. And like I said, he's not a pencil pusher kind of leader. He is an in the trenches leader. He is there's still dirt and sand and blood on my combat boots kind of leader. And we're not used to that here.
He doesn't have all the sort of the high ranks. But, Mark Hemingway made just really quickly on this point, Mark Hemingway made this great point on Twitter, on X. He said, Lloyd Austin is a classic example of mistaking qualifications for ability. He was a miserable SecDef who presided over their Afghan withdrawal, a humiliation for America. He should have been fired, but he has all these awards. He has all the rank, right?
And yet,
so again, classic example of mistaking qualifications for ability. Hegseth, on the other hand, he's got a lot of the ability that we need in a SecDef right now.
And you have to understand, and they kept using the term warfighter. He is a warfighter because he fought in the wars, literally the wars of the last 2 decades, and the veterans and active duty military. I can't tell you the response that I have heard and I have seen from the actual, we always talk about boots on the ground. Boots on the ground means putting people in harm's way, putting people in the way of missiles. And those people who are in the way of bullets, those people who will die when we commit boots on the ground, they love Pete Hegseth. And it's because of moments like this.
Because everybody in this room knows, if you're a rifleman and you lose your rifle, they're throwing the book at you. Mm-hmm. But if you're a general who loses a war, you get a promotion. That's not going to happen in Donald Trump's Pentagon. There will be real standards for success. Everyone from the top, from the most senior general to the most lowly private, will ensure that they're treated fairly, men and women, inside that system.
All right, more highlights of Hegseth and the senators who spoke very well on his behalf. And sadly, some of the lowlights, the Democrats who really, if you're wondering, did they learn a lesson from this last election? Are they going to change their approach, change their tone, change their message? Nope. Democrats going to do what Democrats know how to do. And
WMAL.
Making sense of the news.
Live
From the Home Paramount Pest Control Studios.
Home Paramount, the leader in pest control since 1939.
So much audio from yesterday to get to, the good, the bad, and the ugly, and I always want to lean toward the good first. So let's start with Senator Sheehy of Montana, who really sort of nailed down this whole war fighter ethic that Pete Hegseth brings to the table and the distinction. I want you to listen to this line of questioning and the answers from Hegseth, and then imagine for yourself Lloyd Austin answering these same questions. Let's go.
Pete, I'm actually going to ask you questions because I want to hear your answer. How many genders are there? Tough one.
Senator, there are 2 genders.
I know that well. I'm a Sheehy, so I'm on board. What is the diameter of the rifle round fired out of an M4A1 rifle?
That's a 5.56.
How many push-ups can you do?
I did 5 sets of 47 this morning.
What do you think are most important strategic bases in the Pacific?
In the Pacific, Guam is pretty strategically significant.
How many rounds of 5.56 can you fit into the magazine of an M4 rifle?
Depends on the magazine, but standard issue is 30, Senator.
And what size round does the M9 Beretta standard issue sidearm for the military fire?
A 9mm, Senator.
What kind of batteries do you put in your night vision goggle?
Duracell.
So right there, you're representing qualifications that show you understand what the warfighter deals with every single day on the battlefield. You understand what happens on the front line, where our troops will be. And what happens, unfortunately, in this country is decisions made in rooms like this, bad decisions, end up in dead 17, 18, 19-year-old Americans. And those Americans rarely come from families that sit in rooms like this. They come from lower middle-income families.
Senator Sheehy. I mean, and then Senator Sheehy says, "This is why I'm going to support you." And that right there, I think, sort of crystallized the difference in this country. And it sort of crystallized the difference, I think, of those who voted for Donald Trump versus those who voted for Kamala Harris, Julie. I really do. And it was an important moment. There are more, but I just wanted to take a quick pause there.
No, and it's interesting. If you listen to that, those are some basic questions, right, that a warfighter would know, that someone who had spent time on the battlefield, as you'd mentioned, would know. But I think it's interesting because for 4 years now, we have watched the first year, really, but, there are nominations that happen throughout the Biden administration, throughout any president's administration. And we've watched these, if you remember, these viral videos of some of the Biden administration nominees get up there and be questioned during during the nomination process by senators, for instance, like Hawley, Josh Hawley, and Kennedy. Kennedy's another one who does these very basic questions, and particularly Judiciary Committee nominees who would be asked very basic questions that a first-year law student would know, and they wouldn't know them. And I remember there was a nominee for the Federal Aviation Administration. He didn't know the basics of aviation and some of these, the things you should know about aerospace engineering. And it was really frightening. And so I just thought that was interesting to remember that he knew some very basic questions there, and that's what they should know. We want our nominees to these cabinet positions to know, sort of very big picture, have some theories on very big picture issues, but also knowing the basics of what these warfighters are facing is important.
Right. And I have no doubt that Lloyd Austin early in his career knew answers to questions like that. But something happens. Something happens when you start to get those stars on your shoulder and you have an office job instead of a job in the trenches. And maybe it's time to have a Secretary of Defense who actually more recently was in the trenches. And by the way, if anyone's ever been in the green room at Fox News Channel, those are some combat trenches as well. So I just want to throw that out there. All right. I want to continue with the good because we've got time on the back half of this hour to go to the bad and the ugly. So let's now move to a great line of questioning. Cut 9 here, Kevin Kramer of North Dakota. It's interesting. Not one Democrat raised the question of his racist tattoo. That storyline that the New York Times champion seemed to have gone away. So Republicans decided, no, I want to talk about the tattoo. So here's Kevin Kramer.
You'd mentioned that you were not able to serve with your National Guard unit in the protection of the inauguration of Joe Biden because of a tattoo, a Christian tattoo. Can you elaborate just a little bit on what is this very offensive, extremist, racist tattoo that you have?
It's a tattoo I have right here, Senator. It's called the Jerusalem Cross. It's a historic Christian symbol. In fact, interestingly, recently I attended briefly the memorial ceremony of former President Jimmy Carter on the floor of our National Cathedral. On the front page of his program was the very same Jerusalem Cross. It is a Christian religious symbol.
And it was too extreme for the Biden inauguration. Cut 10 here, Hegseth elaborates on what kind of SecDef he would be for the troops.
How many other patriots, how many other people of conscience? We haven't even talked about COVID and the tens of thousands of service members who were kicked out because of an experimental vaccine. In President Trump's Defense Department, they will be apologized to. They will be reinstituted with pay and rank.
All right, a little bit more from Pete Hegseth. You want to hear from Mark Wayne Mullins, but we're going to first go to Mazie Hirono. You're going to hear from Senator Gillibrand. You're going to hear from your Senator Tim Kaine, who is outraged that Pete Hegseth may have had some troubled marriages in his past. This is the same Tim Kaine who was Hillary Clinton's running mate. We'll get to all of that coming up in a bit. It's 5:23.
Now,
On 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app.
O'Connor and Company.
It's a great Wednesday morning here in the nation's capital as we continue the countdown toward Inauguration Day. It's going to be a cold Inauguration Day, so you should already be planning on bundling up, as the high temperature right now is predicted to be about 25 degrees for the swearing in of the 47th President of the United States. Coming up at 6:05, Garrett Exner with veterans on duty about the Hegseth hearings yesterday that we were going to spend a lot of time with today. 6:35, Cal Thomas. 7:05, Matt Whitlock, Republican strategist, also on the Hegseth hearings. And at 8:35, Christian Toto, who has the scoop on the Reagan movie, why it won't be eligible for Oscars. Spoiler alert, because of DEI. Well, and also because of DEMs, but we'll get into all of that later. It's Larry O'Connor with Julie Gunlock. Julie, don't laugh at DEI.
Good morning.
It's how I got here.
So comical.
It's how I got my job in the first place. All right,
Sure.
let's continue with now Mazie Hirono, the senator of Hawaii, who, by the way, listen, the way the Democratic Party is right now in Hawaii, everyone says, oh, California is a one-party state. Okay, look at Hawaii. It's even worse.
Worse.
In Hawaii, Mazie Hirono could run against the reincarnation of Abraham Lincoln and still win the Senate seat in Hawaii. She is senator for life. And because of that, of course, you don't have to try. You don't have to have a brain. She read her entire exchange with and you know, we're used to seeing senators work off talking points, maybe read the question, but then they're able to speak off the cuff. No. Everything was scripted for her.
Oh, yeah.
And she still sounded either drunk or like a complete moron, or, as you like to say, Julie,
Mashed potatoes for brains. Yeah.
Or mashed potatoes for brains. Sure. So we get to Mazie Hirono here, who really wanted to focus on all of the drinking. Cut 12 with Mazie Hirono.
Something she knows about.
You recently promised some of my Republican colleagues that you stopped drinking and won't drink if confirmed, correct?
Absolutely.
Will you resign as Secretary of Defense if you drink on the job, which is a 24/7 position?
I've made this commitment on behalf of
Will
the
you
men and women I'm
resign as
serving.
Secretary of Defense
I've
if
made this
you
commitment
drink
on
on the
behalf
job?
of the men and women I'm serving.
I'm not
because it's the
hearing-
most important deployment
I'm not
of my
hearing an
life.
answer to my question, so I'm going to move on.
You,
While you have
you know,
made
she
that
goes
commitment,
on.
you will not commit to resigning if you drink on the job.
Yeah. By the way, my favorite part is that I don't hear the answer to my question, so I'll answer it for you. Is my favorite little move there. Maybe if you're challenging someone on their drinking, you shouldn't sound like you've just
Like
had
you've had
8 Long Island iced
17.
teas.
Yeah, no, I mean, were you at bottomless brunch right before you came to
I
this?
think so.
Honest to
Well,
God.
listen, if I were the senator from Hawaii, I have an ongoing Mai Tai and pina colada machine in my office because, you know, why not? And I guess it was after 5 o'clock in Hawaii time, so perhaps. But she literally sounds drunk while she's challenging Hegseth
She's
on
slurring her
drinking.
words. I mean,
But she kept pointing out the U.S. Code of Military Conduct and how drinking would be a violation of that. You know what else is a violation of that? Lloyd Austin going AWOL for a couple of weeks and not notifying anybody that he was having surgery. But I don't remember Mazie Hirono calling for him to resign.
Yeah,
from
and
his
I just want to
position.
say, you know, the reason I ask if she was at bottomless brunch, you know, right before the hearing is because that's exactly how I sound after bottomless brunch. Okay, I recognize it. Okay, go ahead. All right.
Exactly. No one's throwing stones here without actually being knee deep in some pebbles ourselves. More from Mazie Hirono, cut 13.
By people who worked with you at Fox News. Do you know that being drunk at work is prohibited for service members under the UCMJ?
Senator, those
Yes
are
or no?
multiple false anonymous reports peddled by NBC
Do you
News
know
that run
that
directly
drinking on the job
contradictory to
is-
the dozens of men and women.
Okay, I can't. It's too good.
What crack leadership staffer thought, hey, let's give the drunk questions to Mazie Hirono? Seriously, who thought this is the person who should ask the drunk questions?
It's true. They divided them all
I
up
know.
perfectly, right?
They're like, Mazie, you do the
Okay,
drunk
the
stuff
problem
because
is-
you know a lot about it.
Maisie will be good at the drinking on the job stuff, except she has trouble saying the word prohibited. You know, and drinking on the job is prohibited. It's against the rules.
Moving on.
The staffer who said let's let Mazie Hirono do the drunk questions is second only to the staffer who said let's have Tim Kaine do the questions about being a good and loyal husband.
Right.
Because he stood by Bill and Hillary Clinton back in 2016.
And dug
Cut
him off.
14, Senator Kaine.
You've taken an oath, like you would take an oath to be Secretary of Defense in all of your weddings to be faithful to your wife. Is that correct?
I have failed in things in my life, and thankfully I'm redeemed by my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ.
In finalizing
And cut 15 here, Tim Kaine.
completely cleared, can you so casually cheat on a second wife and cheat on the mother of a child that had been born 2 months before, and you tell us you are completely cleared? How is
Senator-
that a complete clear?
Senator, her child's name is Gwendolyn Hope Hegseth, and she's a child of God, and she's 7 years old.
And she
I'm
was,
glad
and
she's here.
you cheated on the mother of that child less than 2 months after that daughter was born, didn't you?
Those were false
If-
charges.
Well,
It was fully investigated, and I was completely cleared.
And it is a great move for Democrats to use unfounded, anonymous sourced. And this is how it works with the Democrat media complex, by the way. Washington Post, New York Times, NBC News runs with these stories without any sourcing. It becomes in the mainstream of the media. And so then Democrats can cite it and say, well, it was printed in the New York Times, and they have a very high standard there at the New York Times. And that's how it works. They leak it to the Times publishes it, then they're able to reference it in the Senate hearings. But if you're wondering, hey, that Tim Kaine guy, that sounds familiar, all that talk about cheating
he
on
is
your wife and the
forgettable.
mother of
Yeah,
your
yeah.
children. Here's cut 16. This is Tim Kaine back in the 2016 election.
And when I'm talking to people on the campaign trail, they're not asking me about old controversies. They're asking me about tomorrow. What are we going to do tomorrow to have an economy that works for people, to have a stronger security posture through stronger alliances? And I hear a lot, what are we going to do to make sure we have a community that respects all? So,
Yeah. They don't
past
care about
controversy.
that Monica Lewinsky stuff anymore. But you, Pete Hegseth, I hold you to a higher standard. All right, in a moment, you're going to hear Senator Mark Wayne Mullen from Oklahoma with a perfect response to those hypocrites in the Senate. That's coming up in a moment. Now, if you're sitting on a large IRA or 401k, sooner or later, the IRS is going to come for its share.
Chris Plant Show, a Democrat senator wanted to know if Pete Hegseth would order American troops to shoot American protesters. 9 a.m. on WMAL.
Senator Mark Wayne Mullen of Oklahoma, you'll remember him. Last we saw him in a Senate confirmation, or it wasn't a confirmation hearing, but last time we saw him in a Senate hearing, he was challenging the president of the Teamsters to go outside and throw down. You remember that? You want to go right now? You want to go right now? Let's go right now. It was great. This guy is, he's rather unplugged and unfiltered, and we like that. And he had enough of Tim Kaine challenging Pete Hegseth on his marital status and fidelity to his wife. He'd had enough of Mazie Hirono challenging him on his drinking habit. So cut 17, Mark Wayne Mullen looks not at Hegseth, but his pals over there on the left side of the panel, the Democrats.
The senator from Virginia starts bringing up the fact that what if you showed up drunk to your job? How many senators have showed up drunk to vote at night? Have any of you guys asked them to step down and resign from their job? And don't tell me you haven't seen it, because I know you have. And then how many senators do you know have got a divorce before cheating on their wives? Did you ask them to step down? No. But it's for show. You guys make sure you make a big show and point out the hypocrisy because the man's made a mistake. And you want to sit there and say that he's not qualified? Give me a joke. I mean, it is so ridiculous that you guys hold yourself as this higher standard and you forget you got a big plank in your eye. We've all made mistakes.
Yeah, he went on earlier actually to dictate for the record exactly what the qualifications are to be the Secretary of Defense. And the qualifications are, I believe, you have to be You have to be 30 years old, I believe, is the actual qualification.
Yeah.
I can't remember, but that's all it is. It's an age requirement.
Yeah,
and that's it.
That's it.
Not
a U.S. citizen.
You don't. Yeah, U.S. citizen. Actually, that's it. You hadn't had to serve, let alone as an officer. Or a high-ranking non-commissioned officer. You don't have to be on the boards of anything. You don't have to have a college degree. You don't have to have any of those other things. It's just be a U.S. citizen. But Tammy Duckworth,
oh boy,
who loves to draw attention. And by the way, well, let's just leave it alone. But she loves to draw attention to her combat service, and I take nothing away from her. Except I always get a little nervous and suspicious of people who every time out of their mouth, all they do is draw back to their military service and sort of wear it as some sort of invisible shield to protect them from any criticism. Tammy Duckworth decided that Pete Hegseth is not qualified. Cut 21.
Have you led an audit of any organization? Yes or no? I don't want a long answer. Yes or no? Have you led an audit of any organization of which you were in charge?
Senator, in both of the organizations I ran, we were always completely fiscally responsible.
Yes or no? Did you lead an audit?
And the way
yes
my
or no? Did you lead an audit?
Stated,
yes or no?
Completely
what do you straight off? You can't answer this question. Yes or no? Did you lead an audit? Do you not know this
pause
answer?
It for a second there,
Senator,
Michael, if you could. Thank you. Just pause it. Could somebody point out the fact that the Pentagon has literally failed the last 7 consecutive audits?
Yeah.
She's concerned that, as she says, that he hasn't led an audit. Oh, okay. How about the fact that your current leadership at the Pentagon fails every audit, and nobody seems to care about that, Julie?
Yeah. No, I agree. And honestly, I don't know who, again, in Democrat leadership, I mean, probably the same crack staffer who was decided Mazie Hirono was the best person to do the drunk questions. But this haranguing by women, these female senators, this screaming at Pete Hegseth, and he kept his cool. This was not a good look. This really wasn't a good look.
Well, they thought it was. You know, the rumors in town yesterday was that Chuck Schumer had let all Democrats know that this was the time that they start showing leadership and resistance. This is the moment. And you're right. By picking Elizabeth Warren, Kirsten Gillibrand, Tammy Duckworth, and Mazie Hirono as the tip of the spear on going after Pete Hegseth, somebody put a montage together so that everyone could hear what it sounds like. And this is what the Democrat Party sounds like.
Yes or no? Veterans organizations that will help our veterans get every damn thing that they deserve because they signed on the document.
Now, I hesitate to play something so shrill and uncomfortable for our radio audience because that hurts. You don't want to hear that. But that's what the Democrat Party is represented as right now.
Larry, watching this hearing and watching those women, those harangue him and scream at him, made me spontaneously apologize to my husband, just randomly. He came into the room. Seriously, he came into the room and he was like, "What's going on?" And I was like, "I would like to apologize to you for being this fishwife for the past, 20-some years. I apologize." And he was confused. And it was because I had just sat through this hearing. And I know that is what my husband has been going through for the last 20-some years. Anyway, not a good look. Really does not endear you to these women on this committee.
Not to take anything away from Darren, but I've been putting it up with this for about 4 years now. And,
I apologize.
And I don't know if he has to do it 4 hours straight in the wee hours of the morning, but no, that's fine. I love you. I do. So what do you think? Do you think that Hegseth has clear sailing now?
I think he has clear sailing now. I mean, he had to he needed to, excuse me. He needed to keep. He couldn't lose.
Have a really good day yesterday.
He couldn't lose three Republicans, and obviously the 2 of the holdouts came out yesterday with statements. I don't know that any Democrats will support him, but if he gets all the Republicans, he's fine. And I think
Fetterman
he did. Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah, maybe.
And we shall see. But I think as of now, unless some huge revelation comes true, and yesterday would have been the day for the huge revelations, he's got it. He will be your next Secretary of Defense. The Armed Services Committee has scheduled their vote for the afternoon of the inauguration, actually, 5 o'clock that day. So we'll know. It'll be a pretty big news day, but we'll certainly be focusing on that. 5:53.